When my 6-year-old niece drew a picture of a purple elephant, I immediately called CPS on my own sister. I know how that sounds. Believe me, I've replayed this moment 1,000 times since it happened 3 weeks ago. My mom still won't speak to me. My dad sends me texts that are just ellipses, like he's perpetually waiting for me to explain myself in a way that makes sense. But none of them were there when little Ren handed me that drawing at Thanksgiving dinner. My sister and I were never close. 5 years apart, different fathers, raised in the same cramped apartment but existing in parallel universes. She got pregnant at 19 with a man named Dario, who disappeared before Ren's first birthday. I went to college, then grad school, building distance between myself and everyone who shared my blood. Ren was the exception. That kid was all spark and curiosity, the kind of child who asked why the sky was blue and actually listened to your answer. I visited when I could, sent birthday packages, tried to be the aunt who showed up. At Thanksgiving, my sister looked thin. Not healthy thin. The kind of thin that makes your collarbones look like weapons. Her boyfriend, a man she'd been seeing for 8 months named Terrence, hovered near her constantly, his hand always on her shoulder, her waist, the small of her back. Ren was quiet. Too quiet for a kid who used to narrate her entire life in third person. After dinner, she tugged my sleeve and asked if I wanted to see her drawings. We sat on the floor of her tiny bedroom while she showed me horses and rainbows, and a surprisingly good attempt at a cat. Then she handed me the purple elephant. "This is the special one," she whispered. "Mommy said if I ever need help, I should show someone the purple elephant." My blood went cold. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" Ren glanced at her closed door. "When the bad nights happen, when Terrence gets the scary voice. Mommy said the purple elephant means I need help." I looked at that drawing, crude purple crayon on construction paper, and understood. My sister had created a code, a desperate secret language for her daughter because she was too afraid or too trapped to ask for help herself. I didn't confront my sister. I didn't make a scene. I hugged Ren, told her she was so brave, and drove home with my hands shaking on the steering wheel. The CPS call lasted 47 minutes. I told them everything. The weight loss, the hovering boyfriend, the purple elephant. The caseworker listened without interrupting, asked careful questions, thanked me for calling. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at my ceiling, wondering if I'd done the right thing or destroyed my family over a child's crayon drawing. By morning, I had convinced myself it was both. That was 3 weeks ago. My family fractured along lines I hadn't known existed. My mom accused me of betrayal, of airing dirty laundry, of not understanding what my sister was going through. She said I'd always been jealous, always thought I was better than everyone else because I'd gotten out. My dad stayed silent, which was somehow worse. Cousins stopped returning my calls. I became the villain in a story I thought I was trying to save. I kept the purple elephant drawing, folded it into my wallet like a talisman, proof that I hadn't imagined the whole thing. Some nights I'd unfold it on my kitchen table and stare at those wobbly purple lines, wondering what Ren was doing at that exact moment. But mostly I kept thinking about her tiny hand pressing that drawing into mine like a message in a bottle. Yesterday, I got a voicemail from a number I didn't recognize. It was my sister's voice, barely above a whisper. "They're moving us to a shelter tomorrow. Ren and me. I don't know how you knew, but..." Her voice cracked. "There's something else I need to tell you. About Ren. About who her father really is. It changes everything, and I think you deserve to know before..." The message cut off. I listened to it 14 times. Each time I caught something new. The tremor in her voice, the sound of a door closing in the background, the way she said, "deserve," like the word itself was a confession. I called the number back immediately. It rang once and went to a generic voicemail. I called again. Same result. By my 5th attempt, a robotic voice informed me the number was no longer in service. I sat in my car in the parking garage of my apartment building, engine off, December cold, seeping through the windows. The fluorescent lights above hummed their tuneless song. I pulled out the purple elephant and stared at it until my eyes burned. Who her father really is. The words echoed in a part of my brain I couldn't quiet. I'd always accepted the story we'd been told. Dario, the charming drifter my sister met at a concert, swept her off her feet, got her pregnant, and vanished into the ether before Ren could form her first memory of him. It was a sad story, but not an unusual one. Our mom had collected similar men throughout her own youth, but now there was another story, a different truth waiting somewhere in my sister's silence. I didn't sleep that night either. The following morning, a gray Tuesday that felt more like February than mid-December, I called in sick to work. I'm a data analyst for a regional hospital system, the kind of job that sounds impressive at family gatherings but mostly involves staring at spreadsheets and writing reports no one reads. My supervisor, a woman named Greta who communicated primarily through passive-aggressive emails, sent me a curt, "feel better," and didn't ask follow-up questions. I spent the morning researching domestic violence shelters in our area. There were 4 within a reasonable radius, their websites a careful balance of hope and security. None of them listed addresses. All of them had intake lines that went to voicemail. I left messages at each one, trying to sound calm and reasonable. "Hi, my name is Margot. I'm looking for my sister. She and her daughter may have been placed in your shelter recently. I'm not a threat. I'm the one who called CPS. Please call me back." No one called. By noon, I was pacing my apartment like a caged animal. My space was small, a 1-bedroom in a converted Victorian that creaked with every footstep, but I'd made it mine. Books lined the walls, mostly psychology texts from grad school mixed with novels I kept meaning to reread. My desk by the window overlooked a courtyard where someone had installed a bird feeder that attracted more squirrels than birds. I made coffee I didn't drink. I opened my laptop and closed it. I pulled out the purple elephant again and noticed, for the first time, something I'd missed. In the corner of the drawing, almost invisible against the white construction paper, Ren had drawn a tiny red heart. Inside the heart, in wobbly letters too small for a 6-year-old, she'd written, "For you, for you." The drawing wasn't just a signal. It was a gift. a thank you in advance for whatever I might do. I grabbed my keys and drove. My sister's apartment was in a neighborhood that had been up and coming for 15 years without ever arriving anywhere. The building was a squat 3-story structure with exterior staircases and a parking lot that always smelled faintly of gasoline. I'd been there maybe a dozen times over the years, always with a sense of unease I couldn't name. The door to Unit 2B was slightly ajar. I stood on the concrete landing, wind cutting through my jacket, and listened. Nothing. No voices, no television, no movement. I pushed the door open with 2 fingers. The apartment was empty, not abandoned. The furniture was still there, the couch with the cigarette burn on the left cushion, the coffee table covered in water rings, but the personal effects were gone. No toys scattered on the floor, no drawings taped to the refrigerator, no sign that a child had ever lived here. I walked through the space like I was visiting a crime scene. The bedroom where Ren had shown me her drawings was stripped bare. The closet doors hung open, revealing only hangers. In the bathroom, I found a single item left behind, a bottle of prescription medication with my sister's name on it. Sertraline, antidepressant. The bottle was full. She'd left her medication behind. Whether by choice or necessity, I couldn't know, but it worried me in a way that tightened something in my chest. I took the bottle. I don't know why. It felt like evidence, though, evidence of what I couldn't say. Back in my car, I sat and thought. If my sister was in a shelter, she'd be safe, at least physically. The shelters I'd researched offered comprehensive services: housing, counseling, legal assistance, job training. They were designed to help women rebuild lives that had been systematically dismantled. But that voicemail, that unfinished sentence, there's something else I need to tell you. About Ren, about who her father really is. The words had the weight of a secret held too long, pressing against the walls of whoever carried it until it demanded release. My sister had spent years constructing a narrative about Dario, the disappearing act, the tragic single motherhood. What could be so important that it changed everything? I drove to my parents' house. They lived 30 minutes away in a suburb that had sprung up around a strip mall in the 1980s and never evolved beyond it. The houses were modest split levels with aluminum siding and lawns that turned brown by August. My mom had planted rose bushes along the front walk years ago. They'd never thrived, but she kept them anyway, their thorny stems a kind of stubborn memorial to optimism. My dad's truck was in the driveway. My mom's sedan was not. I knocked anyway. He answered on the 3rd knock, still in his work clothes, gray mechanic's coverall with his name, Franklin, stitched over the pocket. He was 62 but looked older, the kind of man who'd spent his life doing physical labor and carried the evidence in his spine. Margot. He said my name like a statement of fact, neither welcoming nor cold. Can I come in? He stepped aside without speaking. The house smelled like it always had, coffee and motor oil and the faint mustiness of carpet that had never been replaced. I followed him to the kitchen, where he poured himself a cup from the pot on the counter. He didn't offer me one. Mom's at her sister's, he said. Might be gone a few days. She's that upset? He turned and looked at me with eyes that had seen too much and forgiven too little. Your mother has complicated feelings about family. You know that. I was trying to help. I know. Then why? I stopped myself. This wasn't why I'd come. Dad, have you heard from my sister? His expression shifted. Something flickered across his face. Surprise or maybe recognition. Not directly. What does that mean? He set down his coffee cup. CPS contacted us, as next of kin. They said she and Ren were being moved to a safe location. That was 2 days ago. Did they say anything else? They said it wasn't safe for us to know where. That Terrence had, he paused, choosing his words carefully, that he'd made threats. Serious ones. My stomach dropped. What kind of threats? The kind you don't make unless you mean them. I thought about the empty apartment, the abandoned medication, the voicemail that cut off mid-sentence. Dad, she called me, left a message. She said she needed to tell me something about Ren's father. His face went very still. What do you know? I asked. For a long moment, he didn't answer. Then he walked past me into the living room and sat down heavily in his recliner, the same recliner he'd sat in my entire life, watching football games and falling asleep during evening news broadcasts. Sit down, Margot. I sat on the couch across from him, the same couch where I'd read library books as a teenager, while the world outside felt impossibly far away. Your sister made choices, he began slowly, that your mother and I didn't always agree with, but she was an adult. We couldn't force her to live differently. I know that. What you don't know. He rubbed his face with both hands, a gesture I recognized from my childhood. He did it when he was working through something difficult. Dario wasn't real. What? The name, the story, all of it. Your sister made him up. I stared at him. That doesn't make sense. She was pregnant. Someone was the father, yes, but it wasn't a drifter she met at a concert. He met my eyes. She never told us who it really was. We asked. Your mother begged, actually, but your sister refused. Said it was better if no one knew. Safer. Safer? The word hung in the air between us. What could possibly? That's what we couldn't figure out. Your mother convinced herself it must have been someone inappropriate. A teacher, maybe. Someone who could get in trouble. He shook his head. I thought she was protecting someone, covering for them. For 7 years. She was stubborn. You know that. Once she made up her mind about something, there was no moving her. I thought about my sister as I'd known her. Not well, but consistently. She'd always been secretive, yes, prone to half-truths and misdirection. But I'd attributed that to our different upbringings, our different fathers, the fundamental incompatibility of our personalities. Now I wondered if she'd been hiding something much bigger. Dad, in the voicemail, she said knowing who Ren's father really is changes everything. What could that mean? He was quiet for a long time. Outside, I could hear a neighbor's dog barking, rhythmic and insistent, as if trying to warn someone of something. I don't know, he finally said, but if she's ready to tell you after all this time, maybe you should listen. I left my parents' house with more questions than I'd arrived with. The drive home felt longer, the winter darkness settling in by 4:30 like a blanket being drawn over the world. I stopped at a gas station for coffee and sat in my car watching people come and go. Ordinary people with ordinary lives, picking up cigarettes and lottery tickets and snacks for their evening commutes. I'd never felt more disconnected from ordinary. That night, I did something I hadn't done in years. I pulled out a cardboard box from the back of my closet, a box I'd carried through 3 apartments and 2 cities without ever opening, and began sifting through its contents. It was full of childhood artifacts, report cards, ribbons from field days I barely remembered, a few photographs in plastic sleeves. Near the bottom, I found what I was looking for, a photo album from the summer my sister turned 18. I'd been 23 then, just finishing grad school, back home for a few weeks before starting my first real job. My sister had been a rising senior in high school, moody, beautiful in a way that made me feel invisible, constantly fighting with our mom about curfews and boys and the future she refused to discuss. I flipped through the pages, beach trips, barbecues, a birthday party where she'd glared at the camera like it had personally offended her. Then I found a photo I didn't remember taking. My sister was sitting on the front porch of our house, summer evening light golden on her face, and she was laughing, actually laughing, the kind of genuine joy I'd rarely seen in her. And standing next to her, half cut off by the frame, was a young man I didn't recognize. He was tall and dark-haired, maybe early 20s, with a serious face and a hand resting casually on my sister's shoulder. They looked comfortable together, familiar. I turned the photo over. On the back, in faded pencil, someone had written, July. That was all. Just the month. No year. No names. I stared at that photograph for a long time. The young man's face was partially obscured, but there was something about the way he stood, the way my sister leaned into him. That suggested more than friendship. This was intimacy, history. Was this Ren's father? I fell asleep on my couch, the photo album open on my chest, dreaming of purple elephants and secrets kept in the margins of family photos. The call came at 6:47 the next morning. Is this Margot? The voice was professional, measured. Yes, this is Ramona Hicks. I'm a case coordinator at Harbor House. I believe you left a message yesterday about your sister. I sat up so fast I knocked the photo album to the floor. Yes, I did. Is she okay? Is Ren? They're both fine. Safe. She paused. Your sister has been asking about you. She'd like to see you, if you're willing. Of course. When? Today, if possible. We typically don't allow visitors in the first week, but given the circumstances, we've made an exception. I'll text you the address. Please don't share it with anyone. I won't. And Margot, your sister wanted me to tell you. She paused as if consulting notes. She said, tell her I'm sorry I couldn't finish the message, but I'm ready now. Ready now. The shelter was in a part of the city I'd never visited, a quiet residential block where the buildings were indistinguishable from any other. No signs, no identifying markers, just a row of brownstones with curtains drawn tight. I was met at the door by Ramona herself, a black woman in her 50s with silver-streaked locks and an aura of calm competence. She led me through a security process that included ID verification, a bag check, and a brief explanation of the rules. No phones past the main entrance, no photographs, no information shared with anyone outside. Then she took me to a common room where half a dozen women sat on mismatched furniture, some reading, some talking quietly, a few simply staring at nothing. Children's toys were scattered in one corner, bright plastic against industrial carpet. My sister was sitting by the window. She looked different. Not better exactly. She was still too thin, still wearing shadows under her eyes like bruises. But there was something in her posture I hadn't seen in years. She was sitting up straight. She was looking out the window instead of at the floor. She was waiting for me. Hey, I said, and my voice cracked on that single syllable. She stood, and for a moment we just looked at each other. 5 years of distance, of missed calls and awkward holidays, and the vast gulf between the life I'd built and the life she'd fallen into. Then she hugged me. It was the first time she'd hugged me in probably a decade. She was all bones and trembling, and she smelled like institutional soap, and something underneath that was just her, my sister, who used to steal my clothes and read my diary, and once told me I was the only person in our family she actually liked. I'm sorry, she whispered into my shoulder. I'm so sorry for everything. I held her tighter. You don't have to. Yes, I do. She pulled back, wiping her eyes. I have to explain. All of it. Can we? Is there somewhere we can talk? Ramona led us to a small office with a desk and 2 chairs. She closed the door behind us, giving us privacy, though I suspected there were protocols about how long we could be alone. My sister sat across from me and folded her hands in her lap like a child preparing to recite a memorized speech. Where's Ren? I asked. In the playroom. They have a volunteer who does art projects. My sister's face softened in a way I'd never seen before, the way only mothers' faces can. She's doing so much better. Already. Just 3 days here and she's starting to be herself again. I'm glad. That's because of you. She looked at me directly. You saved us. I don't know if you understand that, but you did. I'd been trying to leave for months, but I couldn't. Terrence had ways of making it impossible. He controlled everything. The money, the car, even my medication. He'd threatened to tell people I was crazy, that I was an unfit mother. He had recordings. He'd provoke me until I screamed, and then he'd record me screaming, and he'd say, "Who do you think they'll believe?" The air in the room felt heavy. I thought about the prescription bottle in my bag, the full bottle she'd left behind. But the purple elephant, she continued. That was my backup plan. I'd been teaching Ren for months. If she ever felt scared, really scared, she should draw the purple elephant and show it to someone she trusted, someone outside our apartment. I never knew if it would work, but She stopped, composing herself. I needed to believe there was a way out, even if I couldn't find it myself. You trusted me, I said. You trusted me to understand. I trusted you to act, to do the thing I was too afraid to do. She laughed, a bitter sound. And you did. You called CPS, you made them investigate. You made it impossible for him to pretend everything was fine. Mom blames me. Mom doesn't know everything. She only sees what she wants to see. My sister shook her head. That's why I never told her the truth. About any of it. Here it was. The moment I'd been waiting for. The voicemail, I said. You said you needed to tell me something about Ren's father. My sister's hands tightened in her lap. She looked toward the window, even though the blinds were closed, as if she could see through them to somewhere else entirely. Dario doesn't exist, she said quietly. You probably figured that out by now. Dad told me. Dad knew I was lying. He just didn't know about what. She turned back to me. Do you remember the summer I was 18? Right before I got pregnant? I thought about the photo I'd found, the young man with his hand on her shoulder, the July penciled on the back. Vaguely. I was finishing grad school. I wasn't home much. There was a guy. She said it like the word cost her something. His name was Emmett. Emmett Vasquez. He was 22, had just graduated from college, was working for the summer at the recreation center where I volunteered. I hesitated. I think I found a photo of you together. From that summer. Her eyes widened slightly. You kept photos? Mom gave me a box when I moved out. I never really went through it until last night. My sister nodded slowly. He was the first person I ever really loved. Not a crush, not an infatuation. Real love. The kind where you can't imagine your life without them. What happened? Everything. Nothing. She exhaled. We were together all summer. Secret mostly. I was still in high school, and he worked there. And there were rules about that kind of thing. Not laws, just rules. He wasn't my teacher or anything, but still. And you got pregnant. At the end of August. Right before school started. Her voice had gone flat, reciting facts she'd memorized long ago. When I told him, he panicked. He said he loved me, but he wasn't ready to be a father. He was supposed to start a master's program in Chicago. He had plans. He left. He begged me not to tell anyone it was him. He said it would ruin his career, his life. He said he'd help financially, but only if I kept it quiet. If I told everyone there was no father. If I made up a story. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. So Dario was his idea. A fake name, a fake story, a fake father who disappeared. Emmett helped me construct the whole thing. He was she searched for the word, thorough. He thought of everything. The concert where we supposedly met. The timeline. Even the physical description, in case anyone asked. And you went along with it. I was 18 and pregnant, and in love with someone who didn't want to claim our child. She met my eyes. What would you have done? I didn't have an answer to that. For a while, he kept his word. He sent money, not a lot, but some. He'd check in every few months, ask about Ren. He even met her once when she was 2, just briefly. I told her he was a friend. My sister's voice wavered. But then he got married, started his own family. The money stopped coming. The check-ins stopped. He said he couldn't risk it anymore, that his wife might find out. So he just abandoned her, his own daughter. Abandoned us both. She paused. That's what I wanted to tell you. What I've never told anyone. Ren's father isn't dead or gone or some mystery. He's alive. He's living in Chicago. He has a wife and 2 kids and a nice job and a life he built on top of the lie we created together. I sat with this information, feeling its weight settle onto my shoulders. All those years of feeling like my sister had made bad choices, had fallen for the wrong men, had failed to protect herself and her daughter. And underneath it all was this. A man who'd made promises and broken them, who'd chosen his comfort over his child, who'd built a wall of silence that my sister had been trapped behind for 7 years. Why are you telling me now? Because Terrence found out. Her voice dropped. That's how he controlled me. He dug into my past, found inconsistencies, followed the money trail back to Emmett. He figured it out, and he used it. Threatened to tell everyone, to expose Emmett, to blow up Emmett's life, unless I stayed, unless I did what he said. He was blackmailing you. In a way, he was blackmailing me by threatening to tell the truth. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. Isn't that twisted? The thing that trapped me wasn't a lie. It was the threat of exposure, of everyone knowing what I'd done, who I'd protected, why I'd let my daughter grow up without knowing her father. I stopped. I didn't know how to finish that sentence. None of it was fair. None of it was right. But I understood, in a way I hadn't before, how complicated my sister's life had been, how many layers of deception she'd been buried under. There's more, she said. More? Emmett. She took a breath. Emmett is Terrence's cousin. For a moment, I didn't understand. The words didn't compute. Then, slowly, the implications began to unfold. Terrence knew, from the beginning. I didn't realize it at first. Terrence and Emmett aren't close. Different mothers, grew up in different cities, but Terrence knew the family history, knew there was some secret Emmett was hiding. When he met me, he started digging. She shook her head. I was so stupid. I thought it was a coincidence, meeting a man who happened to be related to Ren's father. I didn't realize Terrence had been looking for me, hunting me. Why would he do that? Because Emmett owed him money. A lot of money. Some business thing that went bad years ago. Terrence figured if he could get proof of Ren's paternity, he could use it as leverage, force Emmett to pay up or face exposure. It was dizzying, the web of connections and manipulations. I felt like I was trying to map a maze in the dark. So Terrence was with you not because he loved you, but because I was a pawn in his scheme to shake down his own cousin. Her eyes were dry now, all the tears spent. When I started to figure it out, when I started asking questions, he got violent. Not at first. At first it was just control, isolation, making me dependent on him. But then, she didn't finish. She didn't have to. The CPS investigation? I said. What happens now? They're documenting everything. Terrence has a history, it turns out. Other women, other complaints that never went anywhere because the women were too scared or too isolated to follow through. But this time, there's enough evidence. There's Ren's drawings, my testimony, records of threats he made by text that I managed to screenshot before he took my phone. And Emmett? My sister was quiet for a long moment. I haven't decided. Part of me wants to expose him, to make him finally face what he did, what he didn't do. But then I think about Ren, about what it would mean for her to learn that her father chose to pretend she didn't exist, that he built a whole life around forgetting her. She deserves to know, I said gently, eventually. I know, but on my terms. When I'm ready. When she's ready. She looked at me. That's why I wanted to tell you first. Because you're the one person who never gave up on her, who saw that purple elephant and did something about it. I almost didn't, I admitted. I almost convinced myself I was overreacting. But you didn't. You trusted your instincts. You trusted Ren. She reached across the space between us and took my hand. That's why I want to ask you something. Anything. When we leave here, the shelter, we're going to need somewhere to stay. Just temporarily, until I can get on my feet. Find a job, an apartment, rebuild everything Terrence destroyed. She paused. Could we stay with you? Just for a little while? I thought about my small apartment, my quiet life, my carefully constructed distance from the family I'd spent years trying to escape. I thought about Ren's drawings and my sister's bruises and the purple elephant that had changed everything. Yes, I said. Of course you can. The first week with my sister and Ren in my apartment was chaos. Controlled chaos, but chaos nonetheless. My one bedroom had never been designed for 3 people. I gave them the bedroom and set up an air mattress in the living room for myself, moving my books and papers to create a sleeping space between the couch and my desk. Ren thought this was the funniest thing she'd ever seen, her aunt sleeping like a camping person, and insisted on visiting me every morning to report on her dreams. There was a purple elephant, she told me on the 3rd day, but this time he was happy. He was at a birthday party with cake. That sounds like a good dream. It was the best dream. She climbed onto the air mattress and sat cross-legged beside me. Auntie, can I ask you something? Sure, sweetheart. Are we going to stay here forever? I looked at her, this tiny resilient creature who'd been through more than any 6-year-old should, and tried to find the right words. Not forever, but for as long as you need to, until your mom finds a place that's just for you and her. Will you come visit? All the time. She considered this. Okay, that's acceptable. I laughed. Acceptable? Where'd you learn that word? The lady at the shelter. She said the food was acceptable, but she'd had better. Ren grinned. I like big words. My sister was different in my apartment. Softer somehow, like someone who'd been holding their breath for years and was finally exhaling. She spent hours on the phone with caseworkers and lawyers, navigating the bureaucracy of leaving an abusive relationship. She filled out forms for food stamps, for temporary housing assistance, for a protection order against Terrence. Every form was a small victory, a brick in the wall she was building between her old life and her new one. At night, when Ren was asleep, we'd sit in my tiny kitchen and talk. Really talk. For the first time in our lives, she told me about the years I'd missed, the slow deterioration of her relationship with Terrence, the isolation, the fear. I told her about my own loneliness, the way I'd used work and distance to avoid dealing with our family's dysfunction. I thought you had everything figured out, she admitted, this perfect life away from all of us. There's no such thing as a perfect life, I said. I was just good at performing normalcy. We both were, I guess. She stared into her tea. I've been thinking about Emmett, and I think I need to contact him, not for money, not for revenge. Just, she struggled to articulate it, to close the door, to tell him that I'm done keeping his secret, that Ren is going to know the truth eventually, and he can choose whether he wants to be part of that or not. What if he wants to be part of it? She shook her head. He won't. He spent 7 years building a life that doesn't include us. I don't think he's capable of tearing that down, even for his own daughter. Then why contact him at all? Because I need to hear him say it. I need to stop hoping, once and for all, that he'll become someone different. The letter was sent 2 days later. My sister wrote it by hand, carefully choosing each word, and I drove her to the post office to mail it. Ren came with us, excited by the errand, asking 100 questions about how mail worked and whether the letter would travel by plane or truck. Then we waited. In the meantime, life continued its complicated forward motion. My sister started looking for jobs, anything that would give her income and independence. She applied to grocery stores and coffee shops and a data entry position at a company I'd never heard of. The responses were slow. Everyone wanted experience, references, a stable work history that she didn't have. Ren enrolled in a new school, a small charter school near my apartment that had an opening in their 1st grade class. She was nervous on her first day, clinging to her mother's hand at the classroom door, but by pickup time she'd made 2 friends and learned a song about dinosaurs. School is acceptable, she informed me that evening, but they don't have enough purple crayons. I made a mental note to buy more crayons. The response from Emmett came exactly 2 weeks after my sister sent her letter. It arrived on a Tuesday, in a plain white envelope with a Chicago postmark. My sister held it in her hands for a full minute before opening it. I was there when she read it. I watched her face cycle through emotions, hope, confusion, anger, grief, before settling on something like resignation. What does it say? She handed me the letter. His handwriting was neat, almost architectural, the kind of handwriting that suggested careful control. Dear Lena, I received your letter. I've read it several times, trying to find the right words to respond. I don't think there are right words for this. You're correct that I handled everything badly. I was young and scared, and I made choices that I can't take back. Every one of those choices hurt you and hurt our daughter, and I have to live with that. But I can't do what you're asking. I can't become a father to a child I've never known. Not now. Not when I have a family that knows nothing about this. My wife, my kids, they're innocent in all of this. They didn't make the choices I made. They don't deserve to have their lives destroyed by my past mistakes. I know this isn't what you wanted to hear. I know you probably think I'm a coward. Maybe I am. But I've built something real, something good, and I'm not willing to tear it down, not even for her. I've enclosed a check. It's not much, but it's what I can manage right now without questions. Consider it a contribution toward her future, even if I can't be part of it. Please don't contact me again, for both our sakes. Emmett. The check was for $2,000. My sister stared at it like it was a dead animal. $2,000, she said quietly. 7 years of silence, and he thinks he can buy his way out for $2,000. What are you going to do? Cash it. Her voice was flat. Put it in a savings account for Ren. Use his guilt to pay for her college someday. She looked at me. He was right about one thing. He is a coward. And now I know, finally, exactly what kind of man he is. She didn't cry. She didn't scream or throw things or spiral into despair. She just folded the letter carefully, tucked the check into her purse, and went to help Ren with her homework. I admired her for that, for her ability to absorb blow after blow and keep moving forward. It was a strength I wasn't sure I had. That night, after Ren was asleep, my sister and I sat in the kitchen again. The December wind rattled the windows, and I'd made hot chocolate, the real kind, with milk and cocoa powder and a little bit of cinnamon. "I've been thinking," she said, "about what I'm going to tell Ren, eventually. You don't have to decide that now. I know, but I want to be ready. I want to have the words. So when she asks, and she will ask, I don't freeze or lie or make up another Dario." She wrapped her hands around her mug. "I think I'm going to tell her that her father was someone I loved very much, but who wasn't ready to be a dad. That he made choices that hurt us, but those choices don't define who she is or who she can become. That's a good way to frame it. It's the truth, just simplified." She looked at me. "I'm going to tell her he's alive. I'm going to tell her that maybe, someday, if she wants to meet him, I'll help her find him. But that he chose not to be in her life, and that's his loss, not hers. And if he changes his mind, if he comes back in 10 years wanting to play father, then she gets to decide. Not him, not me, her." My sister's jaw set with determination. "I spent 7 years letting other people make decisions for me, control me. That ends now, for both of us." I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "I'm proud of you. Don't be. I haven't done anything yet. You're doing everything. You're surviving. You're rebuilding. You're protecting your daughter." I held her gaze. "That's not nothing." She didn't respond, but she squeezed my hand back, and for a moment we were just two sisters in a kitchen, holding on to each other across all the years we'd lost. Christmas that year was modest but meaningful. I bought a small tree from the lot on the corner, a Charlie Brown specimen that tilted slightly to the left. Ren decorated it with paper ornaments she'd made at school and a strand of lights that only worked intermittently. We put a purple elephant at the top instead of a star. My mom called on Christmas Eve. It was the first time we'd spoken since Thanksgiving. "Margot." Her voice was stiff, uncertain. "Your father told me. About your sister. About everything." "Yes." A long pause. "I didn't know. About Terrence. About how bad it was. No one did. That was the point. She could have told me. She could have." My mom stopped. "I would have helped." I wanted to point out that my sister had tried, in her own way, to reach out. That the purple elephant was a code because direct communication felt impossible. That our family's dysfunction ran deeper than any single crisis. But it was Christmas Eve, and my niece was in the other room singing carols off-key, and I was tired of fighting. "Maybe," I said, "but she's safe now. That's what matters. Can I see her? And Ren?" I looked toward the bedroom, where my sister was wrapping presents with more tape than necessary. "Let me ask her. Give her time. I can give her time." My mom's voice softened. "I've made mistakes. I know that. But she's still my daughter." "I know, Mom. And you," she hesitated, "you did the right thing. With the CPS call. I was angry, but you did the right thing. It was the closest to an apology I was likely to get. I took it. Merry Christmas, Mom." "Merry Christmas, Margot." After I hung up, my sister appeared in the kitchen doorway. "Was that Mom?" "Yes." "What did she want?" "To say she was sorry. To ask if she could see you and Ren." My sister considered this. "Maybe. After the holidays. When things settle down. Take your time." "I know." She looked at me. "Thank you. For dealing with her. For everything. That's what sisters are for." She smiled. Really smiled. And for a second, I saw a glimpse of the girl from that old photograph. The one laughing on the porch. Full of hope and possibility. We'd both been changed by everything that happened. But maybe in the wreckage, we could find a new way of being family. The new year brought small victories. My sister got a job at a bakery 3 blocks from my apartment, working early mornings so she could be home when Ren got out of school. The pay was minimal, but the owner, a woman named Ingrid who'd emigrated from Germany 40 years ago, was understanding about flexible hours and paid in cash plus pastries. Ren flourished at her new school. She made friends, won a prize for a poem about winter, and stopped flinching at loud noises. Her therapist, a gentle woman named Dr. Petros, reported that she was processing her experiences remarkably well for a child her age. "Kids are resilient," Dr. Petros told my sister, "especially when they have safe adults to lean on." The protection order against Terrence was granted in late January. He wasn't allowed within 500 feet of my sister, Ren, or any place they regularly visited. He'd been arrested twice since the CPS investigation, once for violating a separate restraining order, once for possession of illegal firearms. "He's spiraling," my sister observed, reading the news on her phone. "Without someone to control, he doesn't know who he is." "Are you scared?" "Sometimes, but less than before." She set the phone down. "I think the fear was worse when I was living with it. Now that I'm out, now that people know the truth, the fear has less power." I understood that. The purple elephant had been a key, unlocking a door my sister couldn't open herself. Once the secret was out, everything shifted. In February, my sister and Ren moved into their own apartment. It was small, a studio in a converted house with a shared bathroom down the hall, but it was theirs. My sister hung curtains she'd found at a thrift store and bought a secondhand bookshelf that she filled with Ren's growing collection of chapter books. I helped them move on a Saturday, carrying boxes up 3 flights of stairs and assembling furniture with instructions in 6 languages. By evening, the place looked like a home. "I can't believe this is ours," my sister said, standing in the middle of the room. "I mean, I know it's rented, but it feels real," I offered. "Yes, real." She turned to me. "I know this sounds strange, but I don't think I've ever had anything that was really mine. Growing up, everything was Mom's. With Terrence, everything was his. But this," she gestured at the modest space, "this is mine. Ours." Ren ran up with a purple crayon she'd found in one of the boxes. "Mommy, can I draw on the walls?" "No, honey." "Why not?" "Because walls are for looking at, not for drawing on." Ren considered this. "What if I draw something small, like a tiny elephant. My sister and I exchanged a look. Maybe one tiny elephant, my sister conceded, in a spot we can cover with a picture later. Ren squealed with delight and ran to select the perfect location. That night, after the pizza boxes were cleared and Ren was asleep on her new mattress, my sister and I sat on the floor of her empty living room. The windows looked out on a quiet street, the winter stars visible between the buildings. I've been thinking about the future, she said. For the first time in years, I can actually imagine one. What do you see? Ren in high school. Me with a better job, maybe a degree eventually. A real apartment, not just a studio. She paused. Maybe dating again someday. When I'm ready. When I figured out who I am without someone else defining me. That sounds like a good future. It sounds possible. That's the difference. She looked at me. What about you? What does your future look like? I thought about my own life. The job I tolerated. The apartment I'd outgrown. The relationships I'd kept at arm's length for fear of becoming too entangled. I don't know, I admitted. I've spent so long keeping people out. Including you. Including everyone. You let us in. I didn't have a choice. You called me. You had a choice. You could have ignored the voicemail, deleted the number, pretended you never heard my voice. She shook her head. But you didn't. You showed up. That's not nothing. I considered this. Maybe that's what my future looks like. Showing up, letting people in even when it's messy, even when it's complicated, especially then. We sat in comfortable silence, two sisters who'd found their way back to each other through tragedy and purple elephants and the slow, hard work of telling the truth. Spring arrived with cautious warmth. The trees along my street began to bud, and Ren discovered the joy of jumping in puddles. My sister started taking online classes toward a business degree, squeezing homework between shifts at the bakery and bedtime stories. I visited them every week, bringing groceries and library books, and on one memorable occasion, a purple elephant stuffed animal I'd found at a toy store. For my collection, Ren announced, adding it to her shelf alongside the original drawing, now framed and mounted above her bed. Your collection? Of purple elephants. So I never forget. Forget what? She looked at me with eyes too old for her face. That sometimes drawings can be magic. That sometimes people listen. I didn't know what to say to that, so I hugged her instead. Our family was slowly, tentatively healing. My mom came to visit once, bearing gifts and apologies and tears. My dad sent weekly texts, actual words now, not just ellipses. Cousins started returning calls. The fractures were still there, but they were being patched, piece by piece. My sister never heard from Emmett again. She didn't expect to. The check had been cashed, the money set aside, and Emmett had been reduced to a footnote in a story that was finally her own. One evening in April, my sister called me with news. I got the job, she said. The data entry position. They finally called back. That's amazing. It's more than I was making at the bakery, and the hours are better. Ren can stay in aftercare until I pick her up, and I can take classes in the evening. She sounded almost giddy. I can actually build a life, a real one. You already have a real life, I said. This is just the next chapter. The next chapter. She laughed. I like that. It sounds like something from one of Ren's books. Maybe that's appropriate. Maybe. She paused. Margot, thank you for everything, for calling CPS, for taking us in, for being here. I don't know what I would have done without you. You would have figured it out. You're stronger than you know. Maybe. But I'm glad I didn't have to figure it out alone. I thought about all the years we'd spent as strangers, circling each other's lives without ever really connecting, the distance I'd cultivated, the walls I'd built, and then one purple elephant drawing had brought it all down. Me too, I said. I'm glad you're not alone. The summer that followed was unremarkable in the best possible way. Ren turned 7 and had a birthday party in the park with friends from school. There was cake with purple frosting and a piñata shaped like an elephant. My parents both attended, sitting at opposite ends of a picnic table, not exactly reconciled but no longer actively hostile. My sister and I had weekly dinners now, sometimes at her place, sometimes at mine, always with Ren contributing enthusiastic commentary on everything from the food to the weather to her ongoing campaign for a pet hamster. Hamsters are rodents, I pointed out. They bite. Only if you're mean to them, Ren countered. I would never be mean to a hamster. She has a point, my sister said, hiding a smile. Don't encourage her. I'm not encouraging. I'm just observing that her logic is sound. We were a family now, not the family we'd been raised in, fractured and dysfunctional and held together by obligation. Something new, something we were building ourselves, one purple elephant at a time. In August, I did something I'd been thinking about for months. I started seeing a therapist. Her name was Dr. Vance, and she had an office on the 4th floor of a building downtown that smelled faintly of lavender and old books. I'd found her through my sister's recommendation. Dr. Petros knew her, thought we'd be a good match. The first session was awkward. I didn't know how to talk about myself without deflecting, without analyzing my own analysis. But Dr. Vance was patient. You've spent a lot of time taking care of other people, she observed. Your sister, your niece, even your parents, in a way. But when's the last time you let someone take care of you? I didn't have an answer. That's something we can work on, she said. Learning to receive as well as give, learning to let people in. I'd heard those words before, from my sister, from myself in my own head. But hearing them from someone else, someone trained in the geography of the human heart, made them land differently. I called CPS on my own sister, I said. And it was the right thing to do. But I still feel guilty, like I betrayed her, even though I saved her. Those feelings aren't mutually exclusive, Dr. Vance said. You can feel both, the guilt of intervention and the relief of outcome, the betrayal and the rescue. Human emotions don't file neatly into categories. So what do I do with them? You sit with them, you let them coexist, and over time you integrate them into a story that makes sense. Not a simple story, but a true one. That became the work of the following months. Sitting with complicated feelings, integrating contradictory truths, learning that I could be both the hero and the traitor, the helper, and the one who needed help. Fall arrived with its familiar rhythms. Ren started second grade, now a veteran of the school system, confidently navigating cafeterias and classrooms. My sister was promoted at her new job, not a big promotion, but a recognition of her hard work and reliability. She'd started dating again, cautiously, a man named Paolo from her night classes who brought her flowers and made her laugh. He's nice, she told me. Not intense, not controlling, just nice. Nice is underrated. It really is. I'd started dating too, though with the same caution and uncertainty. A man named Felix, an architect who lived in my building and had asked me for coffee one morning when we were both waiting for the elevator. He was quiet and thoughtful, and didn't try to fix me, which I appreciated. We're both kind of broken, he said one night, sitting on my fire escape and watching the city lights. Maybe that's why we work. Two broken people who don't expect wholeness. That's either very pessimistic or very romantic. Maybe both, he smiled. I can live with both. On the anniversary of Thanksgiving, 1 year since the purple elephant, my sister and I met for dinner at a restaurant neither of us could really afford. We'd left Ren with my parents for the night, an act of trust that would have been unthinkable a year before. I've been thinking about that day, my sister said, swirling her wine, when Ren handed you the drawing. Me too. I've played it over so many times. What if she hadn't shown you? What if you hadn't understood? What if you'd decided it was just a kid's drawing and meant nothing? I almost did, I admitted, almost convinced myself I was overreacting. But you didn't. You trusted your gut. You trusted her. She reached across the table and took my hand. You trusted me, even when you didn't know you were trusting me. You believed that the purple elephant meant something, even when it was crazy to believe. It wasn't crazy. It was a mother's desperation turned into a child's code. It was hope disguised as art. It was everything. She squeezed my hand. You were everything. You still are. I felt tears prick my eyes. Tears I'd been holding back for a year. Tears of relief and gratitude and the complicated love that exists between sisters. I'm glad I answered the phone, I said. I'm glad you listened. We finished dinner and walked home through the November evening, arm in arm like teenagers. The air was cold but not bitter. The sky clear enough to see a few stars through the city glow. What do you think Ren will be when she grows up? I asked. An artist, probably. Or a therapist. Or both. My sister laughed. She already knows more about emotions than most adults. She learned from you. She learned from surviving, from watching, from drawing purple elephants when words weren't enough. We stopped at a corner, waiting for the light to change. Do you ever regret it? I asked. Any of it? Keeping the secret about Emmett? Protecting him for so long? My sister was quiet for a moment. I regret a lot of things, but I don't regret Ren, and everything else. The lies, the silence, the years of hiding, that's the price I paid for her, for the chance to be her mother. And now I'm done paying. Now the truth is out, and I'm free. We're free. She looked at me, her face illuminated by streetlight. That's what you gave me when you called CPS. Not just safety, freedom. The freedom to stop pretending, to stop carrying everyone else's secrets. The light changed. We crossed the street together. What happens next? I asked. I don't know. That's the beautiful part. For the first time in my life, I don't know what happens next. And I'm okay with that. I'm not scared of the unknown anymore. That sounds healthy. It feels healthy. It feels like breathing after holding your breath for too long. We reached her building, the converted house with the studio apartment, the purple elephant on the wall, the life she'd built from scratch. Come up for tea? She asked. It's late. I should get home. Felix waiting? Felix is always waiting. That's his thing. I smiled. But yes, he's making dinner. Making dinner? That's serious. It's pasta. Don't get excited. She laughed and hugged me. A real hug. The kind we'd never shared growing up. Thank you, she whispered. For everything. For being my sister. For showing up when I couldn't ask. Thank you for letting me in, I whispered back. For trusting me with the truth. We parted ways on the front steps, and I walked the 6 blocks back to my apartment, my heart full in a way I couldn't quite articulate. Felix was in the kitchen when I arrived, stirring something on the stove that smelled like garlic and possibility. Good dinner? He asked. Good dinner, good conversation, good sister. That's a lot of good. It's a good life. I wrapped my arms around him from behind, resting my chin on his shoulder. I didn't used to think I had one. A good life. I thought I'd escaped my family, left everything behind, built something separate and safe. But then, purple elephant? He'd heard the story. Everyone who knew me now had heard the story. Purple elephant, I confirmed, and everything changed. For the better? I thought about the question. Thought about my sister in her studio apartment, building a future. Thought about Ren, who drew magic with crayons and survived things no child should face. Thought about my parents, slowly learning new ways to be family. Thought about myself, in therapy, and in love, and finally letting people past the walls I'd spent so long constructing. For the better, I said. Definitely for the better. He turned off the stove and faced me, his hands on my waist, his eyes kind. Want to hear something? Always. I love you. He'd said it before, but each time it landed differently. Each time I believed it a little more. I love you too, I said, and meant it, fully and without reservation, for maybe the first time in my life. Epilogue. 3 years later. Ren is 9 now, fierce and curious and halfway to grown. She still draws purple elephants, but they've evolved, become more sophisticated, more symbolic. Her art teacher at school says she has real talent. My sister is saving for art classes, proper ones, at a studio downtown. My sister married Paolo last spring, a small ceremony in a park, with Ren as flower girl and me as maid of honor. My parents sat in the front row, holding hands, something that still startles me every time I see it. Terrence is in prison, not for what he did to my sister, but for what he did to someone else. Another woman, another story, another set of bruises and broken promises. His sentence is 15 years. My sister doesn't speak about him anymore. He's become a ghost, fading into the past where he belongs. Emmett never reached out again. Ren knows now, knows the broad strokes of her origin story, that her father was someone her mother loved, that he made choices that hurt them, that he has a different family now. She processed it with the same resilience she processes everything, asking questions, absorbing answers, and eventually declaring that she didn't need a father anyway, because she had plenty of other people who loved her. I have you, she told me once. And mommy, and Paolo, and grandma, and grandpa, and Felix. That's like 6 dads and moms if you combine them all. I couldn't argue with the math. Felix and I got engaged last winter. He proposed in the kitchen of our new apartment. We'd moved in together after a year of dating, while I was making coffee. No ring, no grand gesture. Just him saying, I think we should get married, and me saying, I think so too. We're planning a small wedding, family only. My sister will be my maid of honor, a reversal that makes us both laugh. We've come full circle, she said when I asked her. 2 sisters who barely knew each other, now standing at each other's weddings. More than full circle, we've created something new. Built it, really, out of the wreckage. The beautiful wreckage, she smiled. That should be our family motto. The beautiful wreckage. Sometimes late at night, I still take out the purple elephant drawing. It's been laminated now, protected from the elements, but the creases remain from all those months of folding and unfolding. Wren's wobbly lines. The tiny red heart in the corner. For you. For you. I think about the aunt I was before that Thanksgiving, the careful distance I'd cultivated, the belief that staying away was the same as staying safe. I was wrong about so many things, but I was right about one thing. The purple elephant meant something. A child's cry for help disguised as art. A mother's desperation encoded in color. A message in a bottle thrown into the uncertain waters of family, hoping someone, anyone, would catch it. I caught it, and in catching it, I caught myself. Learned who I was underneath all the running, all the hiding, found out that I was capable of showing up, of making hard choices, of loving people even when love was complicated and messy and required actual work. The purple elephant sits on my bedside table now, beside a photo of Wren on her 9th birthday, beside a picture of Felix and me on the fire escape, beside a dried flower from my sister's wedding. Every night before I turn off the light, I look at it, and every night, I remember what it taught me. Sometimes the smallest thing, a child's drawing, a whispered secret, a moment of courage, can change everything. Sometimes the people who save us are the ones we least expect. And sometimes, if we're very lucky, we get to save each other.